Hey everybody, my name is Eric Hopkins. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're finding me for the very first time, please hit that like and subscribe button. So today, I thought it would be a good idea, even though I didn't get a chance to do this as early as I would have liked to this weekend due to the fact that we were trying to merge our channels together and set up the new look and design for the channel. I wanted to do a review for Star Wars The Bad Batch, Season 1, Episode 3, the replacements here. So I'm going to go into a little bit of non-spoiler talk here, and then I'm going to hit the spoiler warning before I get into spoilers. So don't worry about me ruining the episode if you've not seen it yet. I thought the episode was a good episode. A lot of people thought this episode was a filler episode. Me personally, I don't know if I would actually agree with that, because I feel like there was things that they did in this episode, much like they do in The Mandalorian, where they're setting up little things here and there that eventually come back around in full circle and they mean something. This episode definitely felt like an episode of The Mandalorian, and obviously since Dave Filoni is one of the creators of this show, it kind of comes from his head, and he's also working on the Mandalorian series himself with Jon Favreau. It stands to reason why some of these shows would have similar setups and designs and how they structure things. So I just don't think that it's fair to say that this is a filler episode yet, because we've said that about Mandalorian many times, and how many times have, by the time the season comes around to an end, that things actually make sense, and we had to have certain episodes to give us certain character story arcs. And I think this is one of those episodes that's going to do that. Plus, there was a lot of great teases into possibly the future of this series, and I think that there's one place they're possibly going. If they ended up doing what I'm about to mention in my spoiler review here, it could be something very, very special in the world of Star Wars that they've not ever really explored before, and I'd be 100% down for it. So there's that. Yeah, I mean, it was good in a sense. I thought you got a little bit of character development from the Omega character, also from Hunter. It seems like some of the other Bad Batch are just sort of there at the moment, but they also are highlighting their skills in particular. And obviously, there's a few things going on with Wrecker. I think that there could be some things down the line that they're going to explore there. And of course, you know, the whole storyline with Tarkin and the Kaminoans is also very intriguing, which is one of the things I think is going to lead possibly to that big story arc that they may be getting set up for here. And of course, we get a little bit more of Crosshair in this episode. Last week, we didn't get Crosshair at all after what happened in episode 1 with him. So it's nice to see that character back and to see where it's going. And it's definitely a little bit of a dark turn for sure. It'll be interesting to see how maybe they try to, you know, I don't know, go. The Bad Batch are obviously have an affinity for their fallen comrade here, so to speak, and they're going to want to maybe, you know, go after him and maybe try to turn him back to the good side, so to speak. But you know, obviously there's things that, you know, Crosshair can't control. He's kind of, you know, doing things against his will, kind of like a bit of a Winter Soldier situation. So I think there could be a major story arc there possibly coming up as well. This show has definitely got a good solid foundation, in my opinion. I think we need to give this show a little bit of a chance. Obviously, we're only 3 episodes in, and there's been a lot of Star Wars that have, you know, taken a little time to build, and that's the way good TV series do it anyway. You don't want to, like, totally just, you know, give out everything away at the very beginning, so you got to give it a little time, and I think this show is going to be pretty good by the end of season 1. So with that being said, though, I want to get into spoilers here, so I'm going to hit the spoiler warning. So if you've not seen the episode yet, please turn this video off now, come back after you've seen it, so you get all my thoughts about what the episode was all about and all of its details. All right, so like I said in the non-spoiler section here, I thought this episode felt like a long, or kind of like an episode of The Mandalorian. And one of the big reasons was the show kind of started off with the Bad Batch having to land their ship, or crash land it, on a moon to repair their ship. I mean, how many times have we seen the Mandalorian have to stop, you know, with baby Grogu and have to repair his ship due to damage from the previous episode? It's kind of takes it away from the main, you know, story and kind of gives it this little side mission and whatnot, which is why a lot of people feel like this episode was a filler. But there are certain things they still do in side mission episodes that build to the main story arc here. And obviously, you know, in this episode, we get to meet for the first time Admiral Rampart, which is our new villain in the Bad Batch series. He's talking with Governor Tarkin, or I don't know if he's governor yet, but anyhow, he's the Tarkin on Camino here, and they're talking about, you know, what to do with the clones, and, you know, whether or not they want to continue with the clone assets from Camino in order to run the Empire with them. And I feel like Admiral Rampart is going to become our new Grand Admiral Thrawn in this series, because obviously in Rebels, Grand Admiral Thrawn kind of took the place of Tarkin and Vader when they weren't on the show. And he was the main antagonist, and I thought that they did a great job with Thrawn in that series. And obviously, we got a little bit of setup for Thrawn in the Mandalorian season 2, and it looks like maybe Ahsoka is going to be trying to find him and Ezra after the events that took place in Rebels. So I think in this case it's good to have a villain that's not necessarily Tarkin all the time. I mean, I want to see Tarkin. I'd love to even see Vader in this series at some point. I'd love to see all that stuff, but at the same time, I think it's good not to completely focus on all of them, because you don't want to completely burn the audience out on characters we already know about. So I would have kind of like the character at Rebels 2 that started out as the Imperial, who ended up being Agent Callus, who ended up started out as a villain but then turned off to be a good guy by the end of the series. And I thought that was a good character development, and it was nice to see, because a lot of times Star Wars, in the films, things seem a little more black and white, like you're either good or you're evil. But in some of the Clone Wars and the Rebels, and now it looks like the Bad Batch, some things are not quite so black and white. There's a lot of gray area in there, where there's some good people on the Imperial side, there's some not so good people on the Republic side. So it's kind of cool to explore those little dynamics, and I love how this show is doing that. Also, during this episode, when Tarkin was evaluating the Camino clones, he sends Crosshair, the Bad Batch member who has his memory chip. It's working as normal he should and whatnot. And they were amplifying it to make him do things that maybe he wasn't willing to do. But I still wonder if Crosshair is a very good character. He's got this attitude about him even before the inhibitor chip, but it seems like the Kaminoans and the Empire are obviously manipulating him to be this leader of this new recruited team that the Empire has recruited here, because they obviously have plans to move away from the clones, and in doing so it'll be cheaper for them and things like that. And obviously the Kaminoans are not happy about it, but I'm going to get into that here in a little bit, because I think there's an interesting story arc that they may be telling here, which could be something incredible for the Star Wars franchise. But Tarkin sends Crosshair to finish the mission and take out Guerrero's squad on Onderon that the Bad Batch failed to complete in an earlier episode. And obviously, Crosshair didn't like that from the first episode, or whenever that was they went. And he obviously feels like, good soldiers follow orders. And so when he, has his own, squad at his command, it takes a very, very dark turn. Obviously, by the time he gets to Onderon, Saw Gerrera is gone, but there were members of his squad still left behind, and even innocent families and civilians, to where Crosshair has them executed. And when one of his squad members refuses to do that, he has that squad, or he shoots that squad member too, and just completely executes him right there on the spot, which puts fear in the other squad members, and they are the ones who execute the family. It's very dark stuff for a Disney animated show. I mean, this is adult material. I mean, granted, they shoot it in a way where it's not too bloody or gory or anything like that, but it's still adult themed. So anybody who thinks that Star Wars animation or animation in general is only for kids, no, not in this case. I think this was a very, very dark scene here, but it was good to see the character development of Crosshair, and maybe he's even if he's got the choice, maybe he doesn't turn back. That's an interesting thought. But yeah, we also got Hunter and Omega having a little bit of one-on-one time in this episode, getting their relationship growing a little bit. We get Hunter's tracking skills in full display here, and Omega learning from him. So they're getting this bond, almost like father-daughter type thing. They obviously have to go up on their own when the moon dragon from the moon that they landed on, that feeds on energy, steals their ship's capacitor to use it as a food source. So they have to go get this capacitor so they can get back off of the planet. And there's a scene where Hunter gets knocked out by this dragon, and then Omega has to use her resourcefulness and courage and getting this capacitor back from the moon dragon when he's not able to do so on his own. And it really showed that she has a way of seeing things and does things on her own, but also is very courageous and is up for this whole thing with the Bad Batch. So she's definitely going to have to grow into this a little bit, because she's still a kid, but it's good to see it. I'm still very curious, because the last episode they teased that the Kaminoans don't create clones without a purpose, and being she's genetically engineered a certain way, we don't know why she was created yet or what she was engineered for. So that's going to be an intriguing story element going down the line here. So we'll see what they do with that. Also, we had Wrecker when they were crashed on the moon. His head kept continuing to hurt him in this episode. He kept saying it was from the crash, but he said he'd be fine. But I got to wonder if there's something else going on there with his inhibitor chip maybe we don't know about yet. I know they talked about earlier in an earlier episode that their inhibitor chips were not necessarily, affecting them like it did the other clones because they were genetically engineered a different way and things like that. So it'll be interesting to see, since they do have them from the sounds of it, how the Kaminoans are going to manipulate those chips and if they're going to have to get those things removed at some point here soon. So yeah, but the big story element of this episode to me was the fact that they're definitely teasing something here between Tarkin, Rampart, and the Kaminoans themselves. Obviously, like I said, the Empire doesn't really have a need for clones anymore. They want to, recruit a cheaper means of keeping order throughout the galaxy and not using the clones from the Kamino indigenous species here. And a lot of Star Wars fans don't understand this, and because they don't watch the animated shows or they don't read the books or anything like that. A lot of people who just have seen the films only feel like, or they are led to believe that the clone troopers from episodes 2 and 3 are the same stormtroopers in episodes 4, 5, and 6, and that's completely false. For those of you who have not seen the animated shows, the clone troopers either die off, something happens to them, or obviously they had advanced aging, so a lot of people assume they died off before the time of episode 4 because there's about a 20-year gap there. But we may be getting a little bit of a story here that may explain what happened to the clones and where they disappeared to after the events of episode 3, between episode 3 and 4. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. But there's a theory going around the internet that what's going on here, since the Kaminoans are not happy about this and they're trying to survive as a business, as somebody who can continue to be beneficial to the Empire. And what's going to happen with the Kaminoans if the Empire decides, hey, we don't want to use your clones anymore? The Kaminoans may have to do something rash. And it's interesting to think that all the clones who still have their inhibitor chips, it's a whole army's worth of clones. What would happen if the Kaminoans decide to turn against the Empire? The Kaminoans could turn those inhibitor chips on and make them attack the Empire. And that's a fight. I don't know. I mean, it depends on how much stormtroopers that the Empire starts recruiting here. And obviously in episodes 4, 5, and 6, they couldn't hit the broadside of a barn with a laser blaster. But could we possibly be getting the setup for the Bad Batch being clones versus the Empire? And obviously the Empire would have to win that fight by the time episode 4 rolls around. But like I said, there's a 20-year gap there between episode 3 and Rebels and Rogue One and episode 4. So you could definitely explore like this clone Imperial War that we have not yet heard about. Now, it would be interesting that, it hasn't been discussed in other material, but it may not be a very long conflict as well. I mean, but it's an intriguing story to think that we may get that struggle, at least the clones versus the Empire. We may not have a full-blown stormtrooper army against the clones, but we'll have clones who could be set against them due to the fact that the Empire are pulling out of their deal with the Kaminoans. So and I believe there might have even been some other material where Kamino had been destroyed by the time of the original trilogy. So it would be interesting to think that maybe the Empire, because of what the Kaminoans do to turn against them, perhaps maybe they destroy Kamino. Or at least the facilities. So it'll be interesting to see where they go with this. But I think that's an intriguing theory that's been going around the internet, and I wanted to touch base on it here, because if they do that, I think that'll be a lot of fun to watch, and it'll make this series must-see for a Star Wars fan for sure. But those are just my thoughts on the Bad Batch Season 1, Episode 3, The Replacements. But what do you guys think? Comment down below. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you get all notifications about when I put up new content on my channel. And until my next video, guys, take care.